Hey everybody! So I'm on Christmas break this week, so I told myself that I was going to shoot videos and do better about posting since I'm off for the next couple of weeks for Christmas and New Year's. So I have another video for you all. So at first I was going to do a video about school nursing, but I think I want to do a video kind of geared towards new nurses and just some tips and things that you all can do to be successful on your first job. Now, this video is going to be mainly geared towards new nurses in the hospital, just kind of based on my experience, but of course this will take you anywhere, this advice. So I'm kind of going off the top of my head. I'm probably going to leave some things off because it's last minute, the topic that I decided to do. But like I said, hopefully I'll be able to remember everything that I'm thinking. So my first tip for new nurses working out at your first job is to stop thinking that you know everything. So I think that it's so easy for you to graduate from nursing school, pass the NCLEX, get on your first job, and think that you've got it all figured out. And I think it's because, I know for me, now mind you, when I went to nursing school, I had a master's degree. I had had an actual job. Like, I was established. I had made quite a bit of money. I was very knowledgeable. And so I already had that going into nursing school. So I feel like my academic background really just gave me such an edge that between my academic background and the Lord, I excelled in nursing school. I did very well by the grace of God. And so it's easy that if you were like me to come from a background, already have a career and be doing well in that career. And it was a very rigorous program, the nutrition program that I came from, and my master's was pretty rigorous. To go from that to come into a rigorous nursing program and then to get a job in a hospital on a medical surgical floor, like, it's easy to think that you know everything. And for me, I literally studied day and night. So in my mind, I was very knowledgeable. I knew lots of things, and I honestly thought that I was going to come onto the medical surgical floor and just truly excel. But honestly, guys, the opposite happened. I got out on the floor and I realized that I didn't know anything. And that's why I said, just stop thinking you know everything. When you step onto that floor for that first day, you need to go in with an open mind. You need to go in being willing to learn. You need to go in understanding that you don't know everything. And you need to go in understanding too that you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. But that's just all a part of it. And that's honestly, in my mind, what makes you a great nurse is if you're willing to learn from your mistakes and do better. Honestly, when I graduated from nursing school, I thought that my studying was over. I really didn't think I'd have to crack open a book anymore. I really thought that all the learning was over. But there were so many nights after my shift, y'all, that I cracked open a book. Like, I cracked open a book and literally had to study medical conditions, how you treat them, what you need to look for, because there's just so much that you don't learn in nursing school. There's so much that you learn, but there's so much that you don't learn in nursing school. So there were lots of nights I cracked open a book. I was up late. There were lots of times on the job where I looked like Boo Boo the Fool. And because it's just, and I can't even really explain it. Like, there's really no way to put it into words, but it's just different. Being in a classroom and learning it from a textbook is so much different than actually being on the floor. And honestly, y'all, like, even when I was in clinicals, because of course, when you're in nursing school, you're going to have your time where you're in the books, where you're in the classroom, but then you are able to go into the workplace, into the hospital, into the different places where nurses work, and you're able to follow a nurse. And honestly, I thought between the textbook knowledge and doing that I would excel. But even working clinicals, it's so different, especially in the hospital, because really you're more of a nursing aide than you are an actual nurse. Because when I was in clinicals, I didn't call doctors. I didn't my preceptor didn't make me get on the phone and call the doctor, explain to him what was going on, what was happening, different things like that. I didn't I'm trying to think about other things. Like I started an IV, and I hung a drip, and I did all that, but I did it maybe once or twice. So it's so different. So that's why I want you to, when you step on that floor, I want you to get out of your mind that you know everything and just be a sponge and be willing to soak everything up, soak everything in. Now, of course, always watch who you take advice from. You want to make sure that you're taking advice, medical advice from a knowledgeable, sound person. But just be a sponge, soak everything in, and also don't be afraid to crack open a textbook when you get home and really review some things, because you don't learn everything in nursing school. And a lot of times in nursing school you learn about one medical condition at a time. But y'all, the way that these patients are, these are the sickest of the sick. I feel like in America right now, we are the sickest that we've ever been. So there aren't a lot of people that just have type 2 diabetes and that's it. It's just not. You're going to find so many people that have type 2 diabetes. They have high blood pressure. They have congestive heart failure. They have kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. It's very rarely will you find somebody with one medical issue. And so you've got to know how to treat that. You've got to know what to do, what to look for with those things. And also in surgery, because I was on a medical surgical floor, that was a big thing. When patients get back from surgery, what are you looking for? What are you making sure? What are you making sure of? And so you may or may not always discuss every single surgical procedure. And I never thought, honestly, that I would end up, because my floor that I was on, we did a lot of not postpartum, but a lot of, it wasn't OB stuff, but it was. Like Dr. Bandy, he did a lot of gynecology things. And we learned a lot in women's health. We learned a lot about women's health, but we didn't really do a lot when it came to surgical procedures, especially the ones as complex as he was doing. He was doing very complex surgeries. So yes, you've got to be willing to learn, willing to crack open a book and understand that really nursing school is just the beginning. It really is. It is just the beginning. All right, so tip number 2, always be willing to help. I can't stand it, y'all, when I am drowning. I'm running around with the chicken with my head cut off, and my pod partner or whoever is around me that day, the other nurses that are kind of surrounding me in my rooms, I can't stand it when I'm running around with the chicken with my head cut off and my coworkers are sitting there on their phone. They don't ask me if I need help. They don't ask me what's wrong. Because I'm the type, I didn't really do it as much when I worked on the medical surgical unit. And it's a little harder because we had a 31 bed unit. The rooms were spread out. So it's kind of harder for people to really see you in distress, because they're in distress too. They got 6 patients and they're overwhelmed as well. But on the critical care floor, it was only 20 beds. No, it was only 18 beds. And we were really close together. So we were a lot more close knit. So if somebody was drowning, you could tell somebody was drowning. And the way I am, I'm super dramatic. When I was in the critical care anyway, I was super dramatic. I would be like, ah! There would be no way that you would not know that I needed help. So, but it would grind my gears, y'all, when I would get around somebody and they would see me struggling, and then they're on their phones, not doing anything, and they don't ask me if I need help. Now, mind you, that's not their job. Obviously, when you come to work, you're responsible for your 2 patients or 3 if we're short-staffed that day. and you don't have to help. But if you want to be, I feel like as a new nurse, and as and even a new grad, not just a new grad, but just a new nurse in general, if you're traveling, if you're new, if you're an experienced nurse but you're new to that unit, I just think it's really just shows a lot about you, and it will get people on your side, and when you're in that situation, get people to help you if you offer to help when you're not busy. Now, obviously, if you're busy, you got a train wreck. Like, no, I don't expect you to ask me if I need help. But if you literally, if you're done for the day, if you're done with your, or for that moment, not the day, but if you're done with your assessments, you're done with passing meds, and you're just kind of having a, nah, and I'm reasonable. Like, I know if you just got done with all that stuff and you need a minute or two to yourself, like, that's different. But if you've been sitting on your phone for 30 minutes and you see other people around you struggling, like, you need to help. You need to ask if they need help, what they can do for you, because simply hanging a drip for somebody or starting an IV for somebody or just doing little things can be such a huge help. And people remember that. Like, I still remember to this day people that have helped me. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all, like, when we would, like, in critical care unit, when you walk in, there's like a big board with the patient's last names on there, and then the nurse's names, who's gonna have them. And how our unit was, it was split up into it was one big unit, but it was kind of split into three sections. Like, there was a desk right here for nurses, there was a desk right here for nurses, and there was a desk right here for nurses. And y'all, so you knew by looking at the board who you were gonna be around for that day. And you know what? There were some days I would walk in and I would see my name and who I was working with. I'd just be like, I already know I'm about to be struggling today. I already know I'm not gonna get any help. Like, I'm not gonna get any help. This is gonna be a long day. But then on the flip side, there would be people that I'd be around and I'd be like, oh, thank God, I'm gonna get some help today. Like, and you do, like, you need help with turning, and I mean, you always need help. So don't be that person that doesn't help, that's just that person that people have to beg you to help them with. And then when they do beg you, you're like, you have an attitude. So especially as a new nurse. So always be open, be helpful. My third tip is listen to older nurses. So on the unit that I worked on, there were some nurses that had been there over 10 years. And they were honestly rare jewels. And y'all will find that in the hospital setting, especially now, it's hard to find nurses that have been in the same unit at the same hospital for 10 years. Really, you're doing well if you've been there 5 years, just because it's so hard working in the hospital. I think the oldest nurse on our unit was 40 something. Teresa was like 45, 46. She was, we didn't have anybody over the age of 50 that was working in our unit. So but I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to be an older nurse working on a critical care unit, because the patients are almost 400 or 500 pounds now. You've got to turn them. I mean, it's a lot of walking. Like, when I would go to work, I wouldn't walk any less. And mind you, our unit was small. We had a small unit, y'all. And I would get probably no less than 10,000 steps a day. I mean, all the time, because you're just hustling and bustling. You're always moving. And, you have the sickest of the sick. So you're always running to something. And if it's not your patient, it's the person that's beside you's patient. So, for my unit, really blessed, because we actually had 3 or 4 that had been there for a long time. So when they would talk to me, when they would tell me something, when they would give me advice, I would listen to them, y'all, because they were super knowledgeable. They had seen a lot. They knew a lot. I just really can't even just put it into words, just how experience just breeds so much knowledge. So, and obviously I watched how they took care of their patients. I watched how they treated other people. Now, everybody that's been there more than 10 years is not gonna, I wouldn't necessarily say is the GOAT, but just watch people. And like I said, I got blessed to be on a great unit where our veterans, like I used to call them, they knew their crap, they knew their stuff, and they were good nurses. They took care of their patients. And so be willing to listen to them, learn from them. And now I will tell you this, even though I'm praising them now, when I first started working there, they were mean, y'all. Woo, they were mean. They were mean. They were mean to me. I remember they were just mean in general. But I remember when so I had a preceptor, obviously, and I was with my preceptor for 3 months. So my preceptor had been there for, at the time, like 4 years, and she was super knowledgeable. She got along with everybody because she had been on the unit for 4 years. So by that time, everybody cool with you. So they were nice to me at the time because they liked her. But so it was my first shift. So we had parted ways. It was my first shift by myself on night shift because at that time all the new people had to work night shift. So and all the veterans were on day shift. So it was it was my first night on night shift, and I walked in, y'all. Now mind you, even though it's night shift, I'm still chipper, I'm still nice. And I was like, hey everybody. Y'all, they did not speak to me. One person spoke to me, and it was delayed. Crystal waited like 10 seconds before she said, hey, and then it was like, hey. Girl, I was like, ooh. Yeah. But I think a lot of that too is they just want to see what you're made of. They just want to mess with you. Like, they want to see what you're made of. Like, are you the type that's gonna cry? Go cry in the car? Go cry in the break room because they treat you bad? Or are you gonna be a little bit more resilient and you gonna fight back? Or kill them with kindness? Or you gonna give them, be crazy with them? For me, I just remained myself, and myself was polite, cordial, kind, took care of my patients so that when they came in that next morning, they were good. Now, I will say this too, they were super intimidating to give report to. Woo! They were super intimidating to give report. Like, so initially they were. But like I said, a lot of that is just, and I know the term, I know we've all probably heard the term, nurses eat their young. That is true, y'all. Nurses eat their young. I think it's probably the worst thing that we can ever do for the profession, but it's the truth. They eat their young. And they're going to be mean to you at first. Now, this wasn't every unit. This wasn't every place that I worked at. But the job that I love, the job that I was at for 3 years, my little PRN job that I had at the heart hospital, they weren't really like that. All of them were nice. I don't know what that was about. But my job at Baptist, I guess I can name drop. I guess that's okay. Boy, now they ate their young over there. But like I said, it makes you, like I said, you've got to choose how you're going to deal with it. What you gonna do? You gonna cry in the car? Or are you gonna stand up and you gonna be who you are, a good nurse, a stand-up person, somebody that takes care of their patient, and ask for help when they need it. And that's who I was. And eventually I think I won them over. And because I just was myself. I just was Maggie. I just was Maggie Bell. So listen to them, but also be ready to be tested with them, and just stand your ground. Stand your ground, be true to yourself, but be respectful too, because there's a way that you can stand up for yourself, but be respectful. My next tip is don't be lazy, y'all. Don't be lazy. Like, don't be that nurse. Don't be that lazy nurse. Don't be that lazy new nurse. There was a nurse when I first started working at Baptist in the critical care. She was so lazy, y'all. And we started together, and she was so sweet, but she was, and we did work night shift. But she would straight up go to sleep. She'd go to sleep. And she wouldn't even do it like at night when it was like 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. She'd do it at like 5 or 6 when the nurses from day shift are coming in. And I'm like, now I don't condone sleeping on the job, especially in a unit like this, because anything could pop off at any time. But especially when day shift coming in, I mean, they just gonna snitch. They just gonna snitch and tell about what you're doing, and that's exactly what they did. And they got her fired. So don't be lazy, y'all. Like, if you need to give your patient a bath, give your patient a bath. That's a big thing. If you need to change the dressings because all the dressings are soiled, change the dressings. If it's time to change the tubing, just change the tubing. I mean, and this is my thing. If you were in the hospital, you would want somebody to do that for you. You wouldn't want somebody to just not bathe you, or not change your dressings, or not take care of you. I mean, I know it's probably even worse now, because now they're just looking for bodies. They don't care what you can do. They're just looking for bodies. But it would just amaze me, even when I did my travel job, just how nurses could do patients, how they could just be so lazy when it came to them. They wouldn't clean them up. They wouldn't brush their teeth. And especially if you're on a vent and you can't do anything for yourself, if you're literally sedated and on a ventilator, y'all. And even not just with personal care stuff, just with assessment, would half assess, wouldn't look at pupils, wouldn't check gag, wouldn't suction them, especially if they're on the vent, wouldn't suction, wouldn't do stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, y'all wouldn't want somebody to do you like this, or your grandma like this, or your grandpa like this. So that's kind of what fueled me, because it is easy to get lazy, especially over time, and especially when you're working 12-hour shifts, and when you're working them back-to-back, and especially, Lord, when I was working night shift. But you know what, because you're tired. You are tired on night shift. But I will say, when I was on night shift, you have a little bit more time to get stuff done, because it's not as hustly and bustly as day shift. But people, shockingly, were still lazy even on night shift. So just don't be that person. Do your assessments, do your personal cares, chart, just do what you need to do. And just remember that one day you may be that person in that hospital bed, and you would want a cream of the crop nurse, somebody that's going to take care of you and going to do what they say, what is going to do right by you. So my next tip, y'all, I was just thinking about it and I lost it. I wrote a few things down, but stop thinking you know everything. Help people, be open, listen to older nurses, don't be lazy. And I think my last tip would just be to, I guess, understand that you're not going to be the best overnight. That being a good nurse is really a process, and it really takes time. I just remember praying to God that I was just like, I just want to be considered a good nurse. And I know, like, it's so weird, like, if you're not in the nursing world to understand that, especially if you're just a student and you don't work in a hospital. But it was just almost, and it's probably like a dividing tactic, but it was just like, oh, Maggie, she's a good nurse. Oh, Maggie, she's a bad nurse. She's not a good nurse. But it's just like, it would just be such a compliment when somebody would call me a good nurse. And especially when, like, the veterans would call me a good nurse. Like, that just was like my dream. That was my prayer. So, but you have to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. That you're not just going to walk on the floor and you're not going to be able to know everything and do everything right. You're going to get some stuff. You're going to get a lot of stuff wrong. And now that I look back in my life and look back over my nursing career in the hospital, it's ultimately what made me greater. It's what made me better. It's what made me more careful, because I made so many mistakes, and I won't talk about them until I know 110% sure that my statute of limitations is up. because I ain't admitting nothing. But just know that I did some things that really my patient could have ended up dying. But it was really by the grace of God that they did not. But those things made me more aware when I would do those things. They would make me more aware, and ultimately that made me a better nurse because I was so cautious. So just understand that it is a process, and that you're always going to be learning, and that you just have to really be honest with yourself and be like, I can do better in this area. I need to do better in this area. What do I have to do in order to be better? Okay, maybe I need to get in a little, I need to come to work a little earlier, and really take the time to really try to get, like, maybe I need to come into work earlier and get report earlier so that I can go through my orders and go through the notes and different things, just so I can make sure that I've got everything, and that I'm, that I'm not missing something major, because you're not gonna know every single thing about the patient. But I will say, when you're in certain units, you are held to a higher standard. So in a critical care unit, your doctors want to be able to come to you, and the labs. Okay, so they honestly may walk up to you and be like, what was his magnesium today? And I don't know is not a good answer. For some doctors that may fly, they may, like the nice, calm doctors that are sweet and have had enough sleep and are in a good mood. But for the majority, oh no, that is no bueno. That is not good. Also, so something that I would do is I would obviously have a report sheet, and so I would just try to. Now, for me, Lord, this might need to be another video. For me, I would take report that I would get verbally from the outgoing nurse. I would take it with a grain of salt. And I would get in there myself. So after I got a report, I would write down what they would say, but then I would go in myself and I would look through the notes, and I would look and see what they were. And I would get my own report, because y'all, sometimes when you get report, it's just not, it's all over the place. It may or may not be accurate depending on who you got it from. And as you work in a unit, you'll know. Now, if you're a traveler, it's a little different, but as you work in the unit, you'll know who gives a good report, who doesn't give a good report, who you really need to go through and read every single thing for, and who you may or may not. Like, obviously, like with the veterans and people like that, I didn't have to go back and read every single note. Like, I may read like the most recent notes, but for others, oh no, I'm going back and I'm reading the entire thing, because I don't trust a word you said. And then of course I'm looking through the notes, and then I'm looking through the labs. But I'm looking through the labs first, because the lab's going to be your most important, because we were on a cardiac floor. So our main labs that we were looking at were magnesium and, oh Lord, what was the other lab that was so important? Oh, I can't remember. It's been 2 years, y'all. But there were certain, potassium, magnesium and potassium. So there were certain labs that you're always looking for. So for me, I would either write it on my paper or in my notebook, and I would always have the notebook or the paper on me, or have it really close, or the board where you write your name, like who the nurse is for the day and who the aide is for the day and stuff. I would write the labs on there, so that when we're in the room, I can just say, oh yeah, the lab, this is the lab. Or if we're walking in the room together, me and the doctor, I'm hurrying up and I'm badging in real quick to the computer, because we would have computers in every room. I'm hurrying up, I'm badging in, and I'm pulling up the lab so that they can see it. So, but that's things you'll learn, because you don't learn that in nursing school, y'all. I didn't learn that in nursing school. That's just what you learn. It's nursing school. Nursing is on the job training. Now, you've got to have some basics to make sure that you don't kill somebody. To me, that's what nursing school is for, to make sure that you just have the basic skills where you won't kill anybody. But nursing, for the most part, is on the job training. So those are just little things that you have to pick up on, but they're survival, because if you don't do that, if you don't learn how to do little things like that, you won't survive. So yeah, that's something that I would do. I would get there earlier. Now, if it was day 3, I'm not getting there earlier. And then as you get as you like, if you get the same patient every day, you can lax up a little bit. You can sleep in a little bit. But if it was my first day back after 3 or 4 days or 5 days, I try to get there earlier. I'd make sure that I'm going through the notes, that I'm going through my orders, that I'm writing down my labs, important information, that I'm looking at their rhythms. Because some things warrant a call early in the morning because night shift didn't do what they were supposed to, or vice versa. If you're working day shift, when you get on, day shift might have done something and night shift has to cover for it. So, and that's what a lot of nursing is. You have to cover your behind, because really after that 12 hours, it's, after that other nurse is gone and you're there, the doctors don't care about what the nurse from the other shift was supposed to do. Now it's on you. And honestly, like when I went from because I worked on night shift for about 6 months, and when I went from night shift to day shift, I will say, and I hate to say this, y'all, because people that work night shift that are nurses that may watch this one day, they may be like, it's always, because I just felt like it was always a day shift versus night shift on our job. Like we were cordial, like we got along, but it was just always like this beef, like day shift versus night shift. And a lot of it was, and I hate to say this because I love night shift and I work night shift, but night shift was lazy, y'all. They were lazy. That's why that's one of my tips, to not be lazy, because they would be lazy. They would play around or sleep around all night. And then in the daytime, when you get report, you're playing catch up from night shift. The things that night shift didn't do, because orders might have come in or their labs might have been low, and now you got to replace stuff, and now you got to play catch up. And that can take a while. That can take 2 or 3 hours. And so by the time you get caught up, now you're behind on what you were supposed to be doing for the day. So just don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Understand the process. That's gonna take a while, and just realize that it's gonna take a while for you to be efficient. Time management is everything. Oh, I need to do another video on this, y'all, because it's already 32 minutes. But time management, that is something that I never completely mastered when I was on the floor, y'all, but it's so important. Time management is so, so, so important. But you're not going to really be able to learn it until you get on the floor. I can give you tips and I can tell you, but you just really have to get into your own rhythm, your own vibe, and really get it for yourself. So, but that will be the death of you. If you don't get time management, it will be the death of you. If you don't get organized and you don't write things down, and you are just not efficient, it will be the death of you, and you will not do well, especially on a critical care unit, y'all. Because it can be a little dog eat dog down there. So, what else was I going to say about that? But let me just say this real quickly about time management, because I honestly thought going from having 6 patients on a med-surg floor to having 2 on a critical care unit that I would be super efficient on time management. But there was a lot I had to learn, and thankfully I was open to learning, because I could have easily been a know-it-all. And my preceptor honestly thought that I knew more than I did. And I did not, y'all. Or either she just had a lot of faith in me. But, it was just little things that needed tweaking. Like I would, and that sometimes you have to change your thinking. Because in my mind, so we would have a sick, so how my unit usually tried to do is they would give you a really sick patient. They were all sick, but there were some that were not as sick as others. So they would usually try to give you a really sick patient, and then give you one that was kind of easy, just to balance you out, because usually you're going to spend more time with your really critically ill patient than you would somebody that's not as critically ill. So in my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to go see my easier patient first, because it's not going to take me as long in there. So I'm going to go assess them, give them their meds, do everything in there, and then I'll go see my sick patient. So thankfully, I had a really good preceptor, and she was like, listen, you need to go see your sick patients first, because that's who the doctors are going to come see first. They're going to come see their sickest patients first, and then they're going to come worry about their other patients later. So you need to, not know everything, but kind of at least have an assessment, know their labs, have a baseline of your sick patient before you try to go fool with this other patient. So that was super helpful. And what I learned down the road as well is I can't do everything. I can't do everything in the first hour. I can't do 12 hours worth of nursing in the first hour of the day. So for me, like, I would go in and I would just try to do everything. Like, I would try to do pretty much everything except give them a bath. I would try to change dressings. I would try to do an assessment. I'd try to do oral care. I'd try to do give meds. And then, like, and that's just my personality though. Like, I would want to get everything done in here before I go to the next room. But that's just not how it worked. And then, I'm kind of the chatty person. And for the most part, I didn't have to deal with that because most of them were on the vent. But at the time, we could have family in there. So sometimes the family may want to talk. They may have a lot of questions, so that might slow you up. But I had to learn time management. I can't do everything. The best thing that is to do an assessment, look through the labs, look through the notes. If there's any pressing meds, check to see, especially if they're on drips and everything, check to make sure that nothing's about to run out, check to make sure the vent is good, just make sure that everything's good. And then go to your other room, kind of do the necessities, do what you need to do, and then go out and come back. And then kind of once the doctors have come through, once things have kind of settled down a little bit, then you can spend a little bit more time in the room and doing what you need to do. But that's just something you learn, y'all. It's something you learn. So that's why I said be open to learning, understand it's a process, and you're not gonna come on the floor the first day knowing everything. So just get that out your mind. So y'all, I always say this. I always say I don't mean for my videos to go this long. And I really mean it, y'all. I really don't be meaning to talk this long. But I just have a lot of information in me that I want to give to you all, because I really honestly wish somebody would have told me this before I went to nursing school, before I got my first job, because it's not easy. It's not easy, y'all. And a lot of times our families and friends, they just don't understand what we do. And we just have such a huge job. It's such a responsibility it's such a huge responsibility to take care of sick people. And it's a huge responsibility that weighed very heavy on me. And it's so easy to, and I was just kind of shifting. I was telling somebody I had PTSD before COVID, so I can only imagine what it was like, in those first beginning stages of COVID, because it is nursing is it's just a difficult job. It's so much death, so much that's riding on you. I told my mom not too long ago, because I'm just a private person, and since I've been kind of having issues with my health, I really do think that a lot of it is linked to when I worked in the hospital, and really probably even being a school nurse, just my personality. But I think a lot of my health issues are linked to the amount of stress that I had, but mostly while I was in the hospital. And I think it's because I just always felt like I was on that it was always such a thin line between death and life. And I was that line. I felt so responsible for making sure that everything was right. And when I would do something wrong, I would be so hard on myself, especially when it was something that really could have cost somebody their life. I was super hard on myself. I was super just critical, and it would eat me up. Would eat me up at night. I wouldn't be able to sleep. Um it was just a really tough time. Working in the hospital was really hard for me, and I think a lot of it was just, like I said, just my personality. I just I was just so passionate about my job, and I was so passionate about my patients, and I took what I did so seriously that I would just get so upset when I would do something wrong, and just not realizing that everybody's been there. Like, everybody's done something wrong. Like, everybody has made a mistake that's cost somebody or almost cost somebody their life. And, at the end of the day, I'm a human. I'm a human. We're all human, and we all make mistakes. And, you know, it just was hard. It was hard. And it's even hard now looking back at it, just thinking like, man, you know, I really made I'm having these issues now because of just because of that. So I miss the hospital, but I think for right now it's best that I'm not there, just because my body needs to heal, and I just have some work I need to do on myself mentally and and physically. So yeah, I hope that helps, and I just hope that you'll take my advice, because I know a little something. I haven't been a nurse for very long, but I do know a thing or two. So thank y'all for watching. And if you have any questions, as always, you can put them in the chat, and I will make sure that I get it answered. So I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.